Last week, I went to New Orleans with my family for a client meeting. And while we're there, we're trying to do some fun things for the kids. And there's a place called Louisiana Children's Museum. So we decided to walk on over there and let the kids run off some energy after being in the hotel for probably a little bit too long. And we were walking around, and there was a lot of stuff that was kind of on this one floor specifically, a lot of stuff that was more based in science and trying to get kids to understand kind of the scientific method a little bit. And on one part, you walk up these steps, and there's a lot of like microscopes and stuff for the kids to check out. There's something that I saw on the wall that really struck me, and it was the scientific method laid out in very simple terms for kids to understand. And whenever I saw this, knowing me, I immediately started thinking about how that can apply to marketing, and how a lot of marketing is based on science. And I want to make this video to kind of walk through some of these steps of that scientific method a little bit, and how it applies to marketing. The first step of the scientific method is to first identify the problem, or identify a problem. And again, same applies to marketing, where if you decide that you want to use marketing for something, you first need to understand what the problem is that you're trying to solve. Sometimes it's, we're releasing a new product and we want to get it out there and we want to introduce it to the world. Sometimes it's you might be already far along in the process, and sometimes it might be that we're trying marketing for this thing and it's not working. So the problem would be it's not working, or nobody knows about it, or you get the idea. So that's identify the problem. Up next is Brainstorm Solutions. This is a big one that's often overlooked by companies and marketers. And it's overlooked because people often think of the idea for what they want to do before they understand the problem that they're trying to solve. For instance, I get a lot of people that come to me and they say, hey, I want an explainer animation, or hey, I just want like a couple simple little animations for the website. But they don't really understand what problem they're trying to solve. They're thinking more about quantity than they are about understanding that solution wholly and developing a solution just for that problem. Up next is make predictions. This is sort of the hypothesis section here, where you say, okay, if we do this solution, then we believe this will happen. Now, these shouldn't be wishful thinking ideas where, okay, if we do that, we're going to get $1 billion from this idea. Of course. That's certainly wishful thinking. Something that might be more reasonable is saying, okay, well, if we do this, we might be able to increase response rate of 2%. Like something along those lines is, doing a lot of those little things is more important than trying to hit the home run and make a viral video with a single piece of marketing. Next one is test ideas. This is probably the most important step of the scientific method, or the scientific marketing method, we'll call it, where a lot of times people, again, they assume that one idea is going to just work. They'll just go forward with that one idea, and then once it's done, it's done. And I kind of believe the opposite, where I believe you should start out with one solution for that one problem, but rarely is that one thing, that first try, ever going to just, be perfect. Sometimes you need to develop several ideas, or keep iterating on that same idea, revise as you're kind of going through the process. Maybe it is an animation, or let's say an animation. Let's say you use this animation, and the problem is that it's just not getting to the audience the way that you were hoping it would. So maybe there's nothing wrong with the animation, but maybe you need to tinker with how it's being shown and where it's being shown. So things like that would be revising the idea to make it more effective. Or, for instance, maybe the animation isn't talking exactly to the right people. Maybe you had the wrong idea of who the exact audience was that you were trying to reach. And maybe it was a different subsection. So you need to change the language a little bit. So instead of kind of remaking a whole new animation starting from scratch, maybe it's, okay, let's revise the voiceover just a little bit and make it kind of work better for that audience. Stuff like that is much more effective to kind of fix that first thing than to just keep making several different things. But testing ideas is a really, really big, important idea in marketing because, like I said, you're rarely going to hit that home run on that first swing. So sometimes you need to kind of tinker with it in order for it to perform the best that it possibly can. Next step is to share the results. Now, in the scientific method, this might be to publications or something like that. In marketing case, it might be sharing with ownership or sharing with the team what you've learned from doing this piece of marketing. Going back to the example of the animation, maybe, maybe you're learning these things on the fly, like, hey, this performed better than this one. Having this animation with this music track actually performed better than this one. Or changing the colors or something like that. Stuff like that is really important to share with the team because those are all lessons learned. One of the big things for me recently, I actually started a advertising campaign for the Game of Creativity through Google AdWords. And I've been working with a really great guy on that that's been kind of walking me through some of this process because I am certainly not an AdWords expert. So one of the things that he was telling me was that whenever you spend money on AdWords, it's never really a waste unless you just stop adapting. So one of the things that you're supposed to do whenever you're using AdWords or any kind of advertising is take the data that you're getting and make changes to it, change along the way. And maybe you're not going to make a bunch of money from advertising in the first couple of months because it takes time to figure out, okay, this keyword, it doesn't really make sense why somebody would search for that and get to your product. So you eliminate those things. You're cutting things out over time. And that's sort of the same reason of sharing the results, because even if you create something that doesn't hit that home run, there's still things to learn from all pieces of marketing. Maybe you realize, hey, our audience absolutely despises this certain kind of story. Well, then you can make that change and say, okay, well, from this point forward, we're not going to do that. Or better yet, maybe you learn that, hey, our audience loves videos with subtitles at the bottom. So then you're like, okay, well, you know what? Let's do that for everything that we do now. So you learn things from sharing with others as well. And you kind of, instead of things being a waste of time or money, you're growing, you're learning, and it's sort of like paying for an education whenever it comes to marketing sometimes, and I think that's really important. And then the sort of last step is to ask more questions. So based on all of those steps and the results that you're seeing, ask more questions, because again, this is not a linear process, this is more cyclical. It just keeps going over and over again, and you keep learning more and you become more efficient over time. So questions might be, okay, well, how do we get this in front of a larger audience? Or it might be, do people even like this kind of marketing? Does our audience respond well to this kind of marketing? It's asking a lot of those kinds of questions and then starting over to identify the problem. And that's all I have. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and follow and whatever else there is. And let me know in the comments below. Let's see. Let me know if you've ever used anything similar to the scientific method in your process, or how you go about measuring success and making changes in your marketing. And that's all I have. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.